The honourable member for Fort McMurray Wood Buffalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to rise today to, first of all, thank the Premier for his comments today on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I'd also thank all of the other honourable members that have spoken to that, in particular comments from my friend and colleague, the honourable member from Lesser Slave Lake, for her very personal and touching comments. I'd also thank all the survivors who demonstrated a tremendous amount of courage in sharing their stories. I think it's important as well. I'd like to acknowledge Willie Littlechild from Wetaskiwin Camrose, the riding of Wetaskiwin Camrose, who was the only commission member from Alberta, and thank him for his work on the commission. I commend the government on its commitment to enhancing the K-12 educational curriculum to include more content about this tragedy of the residential schools and the treaties. It is so important that we continue to educate our teachers and students so this tragedy is never repeated and never forgotten. While I share the sentiments of many of my colleagues in this chamber that this Truth and Reconciliation Commission's work has had a healing effect, there is still more work that must be done. It's important to acknowledge the horrors faced by the victims of residential schools, but we must not turn a blind eye to other victimized groups within this unique population. There are 5 First Nations and many Métis people in my region, and I've heard from many of them that more work still must be done. I'm pleased to hear that the Premier said that the work continues. While this Commission has been a step forward, I feel it disconcerting that the federal government continues to reject the calls by Aboriginal and Métis groups across the country for an independent public inquiry into the murder and disappearances of Aboriginal women. Aboriginal women, Mr. Speaker, account for at least 8% of homicide victims in Canada between 2004 and 2010, despite the fact that they only account for 4% of the total female population. Further, Aboriginal women are twice as likely to suffer domestic violence and much more likely than other women to be attacked by strangers. While I appreciate the work the government has done on this Commission, I strongly urge our government to demand that the federal government hold a national inquiry into the murders and disappearances of these women. Having heard the heartbreaking stories during this Commission, let us not turn a blind eye to further tragedies. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.